Hi everyone! Today we're going to talk about something we hope you never have to use, but think you should never travel without. A medical kit for van life, outdoor adventures, and for your dog too. Because when you live and play far from help, being prepared can literally save a life. So why do van lifers need a really good medical kit?
We love to get out in all terrain, and the exposure is great, and sometimes our skin suffers from a little too much heat. We pitch our tent in precarious locations, and sometimes we get ourselves in very tight spots. Storms will often roll in unexpectedly, and we do a lot of things: biking, skating, plunging in cold water. A lot of us like to get up and get a view. But with that comes some difficult terrain and difficult footing. Oftentimes, we're standing on some type of precipice, and that can be a little scary. Why not trek through a swamp? That seems like a good idea. Nothing could go wrong here. Hiking barefoot can also increase your risk of injury, but it's nice. Do you remember this video from a few months ago at Lower Calf Creek Falls in Utah? Well, this is John standing there a few years prior. Sometimes you get stung just one too many times and begin to have an allergic reaction. If you've ever winter camped, then you know that comes with a whole new host of challenges. And our canine companions, well, they love to find things like this. If you're in the desert, they love to get cactus thorns in their legs. And there are all kinds of toxins out there in the environment that we can be exposed to, us and our pets. Just look at the size of this rattlesnake I came across hiking in California. And I know I'm not the only one who stays out far beyond sunset because it's just too gorgeous to leave and to wind up hiking out in the dark, sometimes getting lost. Normally, all of this leaves us with great big smiles on our face. But sometimes we get into something, we hike out a little too far, we ingest something that we're sure is going to kill us, and we have to send a tearful cell phone message to our loved ones saying goodbye just in case.
In the wilderness, small problems can turn into very serious ones very fast if you're not prepared. There's a saying, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your preparation. Having the right tools and knowing how to use them gives you time, and in emergency situations, time is everything. A quick disclaimer before we get into this: we are not medical doctors, we are simply sharing the tools that we have found essential in our kits based on our own experience. However, we do have some medical background. John was a nurse for many years. I have taken both wilderness first aid and wilderness first responder training, and I served as a veterinary technician for over 11 years. So we do have a bit of knowledge in this field. We are also not affiliated with any brand that we mention. We receive $0 from any of these companies that we're going to mention. We're just sharing what we currently have in our kits. Now, the most important part of your medical kit is going to be knowledge. So I highly recommend ongoing training for yourself. Whether you take actual wilderness courses or just watch some YouTube videos, You can look up specific scenarios for situations you may come across. And there's also case studies from places like Knowles, which is the National Outdoor Leadership School, and My Medic as well has some courses that I believe you can pay for. We also always carry some type of wilderness medical field guide, because when you're stressed out in a situation, having something like this that you can quickly reference is just gives you a sort of sense of peace and a sense of being in somewhat of control. You know what you're doing, even if you have to take a few seconds to look at something and do it right, you could save a life. So, for example, if you're hiking up a mountain and a storm rolls in, which often happens when you're quite exposed to the elements, you could quickly look up lightning prevention and what you should do in that situation. So super helpful to have a guide. There are lots of good guides out there. This one is actually from Wilderness Medical Associates, the company that I took wilderness first responder training with. One thing I really like to do is to look at what our risk is. One thing I really like to do is look at what our risk is going to be for the day, what type of activity we're doing. So for example, if we're going to be climbing a mountain with high exposure, fall risk, lightning danger, those types of things like I mentioned before, I'm wanting to pack a kit to match the risk we're going to be taking. So this is a previous pre-packaged medical kit that I purchased, but I have it empty so that I can look at the day's activity and pack this based on what we'll be needing. So if we're hiking the mountain, like I mentioned, maybe I'll pack some spraying and stabilization gear, some sun protection, some blister protection, electrolytes, and a tourniquet for something serious happening. So I'll do that. Like I said before, there are a lot of pre-made medical kits that are pre-assembled, tailored to specific activities. So nowadays you can find one for hiking, biking, for your car, even for your pets. This is one I got for our pets. And this is from Adventure Medical Kits. But My Medic carries a lot. Knowles has them. You can find them anywhere. Amazon, I'm sure, carries them as well. So personally, I prefer to build my own kits from individual components. I know what I use the most, and I don't want to carry around a lot of gear that's going to add weight, make things more dangerous that I know I'm not going to be touching that day. However, if you're starting out, you want to buy a pre-made, assembled medical kit, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just sharing today what we prefer to do. So what are the things that can kill you in the wilderness? I know this part sounds a little dramatic, but it's important to think about. A lot of the common causes of death in the wilderness are dehydration and heat illness, trauma from falls, hypothermia, drowning, cardiac arrest, and just getting lost out there. And a lot of these can be preventable when you're prepared. When you're going to be far from your van and your main medical supplies, and you're going to be out for a long portion of the day where there is danger that something could happen that could delay you getting back before dark, I recommend that you always carry the following essential gear in your backpack. One would be a knife or multi-tool, and you want to know how to use your tool. For example, this knife that I have here has a fire starter on it. However, if I've never practiced with this tool, then I wouldn't know how to use it in that survival situation. So you actually want to get to know your gear and use it and practice with it. Other things that are must are water and some type of filtration system. A lot of people these days are carrying around the water straws, which you can sip directly out of any disgusting water that you come across to stay hydrated. You can also carry just a couple of the iodine tablets. They don't taste great, but they'll be helpful to preventing you from getting a parasite. The other thing is emergency shelter, some type of emergency bivy, and a survival blanket, or at least a survival blanket. You know, like I mentioned on my knife, a fire starter, some waterproof matches, something to help you build a fire and keep yourself warm. Extra food, headlight, and extra batteries. A lot of times people will run out of their light, or you could have a rechargeable headlamp, something that you can use solar with. But yeah, just make sure that you have backup to your light system, because a lot of times people get stranded in the dark, wind up going off trail, and that's when problems really can begin. And emergency locator device. A lot of people have the Garmin InReaches. Don't rely just on your cell phone. Have something that will work via satellite in any situation so that help can be brought to you. And hopefully these essential gear will keep you alive long enough for help to get to you. My original plan was to have this be all one video. However, apparently I like to nerd out on this stuff, and partway into editing I realized this is going to be like an hour-long video. So I've decided to break this video into 3 separate parts. So today's video was more about the essential gear to always carry on you. Next week's video will focus more on the medical kit for people, and then the third video will be specific to your canine friends. I hope you appreciate this type of content. If you do, please let me know so I can continue to formulate what you guys are looking for. I really enjoyed making this video. Like I said, I think I kind of nerd out on this stuff. It's a wonderful time to do this video because we've just had in the United States this freezing cold Arctic temperatures with a ton of snow, and John and I neither feel like working on our van build right now, so might as well still get prepped for when we do get out on the road. This is the stuff I like to always have on hand, and I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone.